if you're up at night doom scrolling on whatever your choice of social media, looking at politics and arguing with people, and then you're upset and then you don't sleep well, the influencer person's going to try to sell you ashwagandha, rhodiola, and phosphatidylserine or some cortisol blocking thing. But really, the underlying issue is that you're not sleeping well. And sure, those things will disturb your diurnal curves of your cortisol and whatever. But it wasn't the cortisol that was the issue. It was
hmm
the sleep and changes in lifestyle. Those are not sexy. People do not want to hear that. They want to hear that it was that it's a supplement thing, but you don't have a supplement deficiency. You don't have a rhodiola
Right.
deficiency. The rhodiola maybe that will help calm you down to where you're like, oh, I don't even want to go on social media. Maybe that's the case, and stuff like that. But it wasn't the underlying issue. So
Yeah.
yes, make sure that you're eating enough, nourishing your body. The standard, so boring stuff that people just
I know. Welcome to Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt, the world's #1 no bullshit health and fitness podcast.
Are you ready to cut the crap with your diet and exercise, get strong as fuck, and build a healthy relationship with food? Then you've come to the right place.
Let's go. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, join our Patreon where you get exclusive content, which consists of monthly workouts you can do at home or at the gym, monthly challenges that are either strength, habit, or mindset based, and access to over 100 plus low-calorie, high-protein, family-friendly meals. These are all designed by a professional chef who is certified in nutrition. These recipes are already in MyFitnessPal for easy fucking tracking. New recipes are also added each week.
We believe that fitness is for everyone, so this is our way of getting you started on your health and fitness journey at a price most everyone can afford. So what the fuck are you waiting for? We'll see you in the Patreon.
How are you, Dr. Spencer Nadolski?
what's up?
What is up? You have been our bucket list guest for, I don't know, a few years now.
Where the fuck have you been then?
Actually, I think Matt reached out to you. I don't know. I think a few times we have, but you're hard to get in touch with. And so when you followed me and then you messaged me, I'm like, and you're like, let's chat. Yes, let's chat. So I'm so glad you're here.
It's probably one of those things where I got the DM and then I said to email me and then then I didn't do anything and then it's
Who
just
knows? I know I get like so many different folders in Instagram. Like there's like the private section and there's the, you know
We're
what I
always
mean?
changing it
So
on us.
who knows? Who knows?
well, we're here.
We're here. And
We're
excited.
here.
We're excited to cut the crap with you today.
Yes. Yes.
So let's do a little intro here. You ready to just get right to it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Totally.
Awesome. So today, guys, we are joined by Dr. Spencer Nadolski, a board-certified obesity specialist, family physician, and is also known across the interwebs as the doctor who lifts. If you've ever been confused by the online dumpster fire that is weight loss advice, Dr. Nadolski is here to cut through the crap with us.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Beth and I were talking, and we've been following you for quite some time, and it goes back to like the meme days, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's how probably a lot of people found you early on in the days. The memes that were just straight to the point and cutting through all the bullshit out there.
Yeah, nobody likes memes anymore. What the
Yeah,
hell?
no.
Everybody wants reels, and I'm like, I'm tired.
I know. I love the memes like are a good break from the fucking bullshit right now, you know?
It's different now. And funny thing is I've noticed just a huge, like, the algorithm. People are like, oh, the algorithm's not working. I'm like, no, it's just adapting. So they want you to do reels. And I'm like, I'm just tired. I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
please,
How
whatever.
long have you been online making content?
For a long time, I started doing it in residency. So 2011, 12-ish, just giving out just stupid, simple.
Mhm.
Oh, I saw a page like residencies where you go after med school, where you actually take what you learned in med school. Like med students don't really know anything. They have a lot of information, but you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And so that's where you start seeing patients and having your own patients, but you're not board certified yet. You're licensed. And that's where I started basically going, hey, I did this with a patient. It was Facebook, really. And people, it was just kind of resonated. Nothing groundbreaking. Didn't go viral because I made up something about wheat belly, the guy.
Oh God, I think I had that book.
Yeah, so many those were like the fads back then, and I'd always
Uh-huh.
just be like, I'm not jumping on this. Think about like people like Paul Saladino who had just a couple thousand followers just a few years ago and was like and he just people like that. You can go you there are ways, there's a playbook to go viral and you can be huge. I
Yeah.
refuse to take those you just lose all integrity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you guys do and do like legitimate stuff.
Same.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Likewise. So you are an obesity specialist.
Yeah.
And so I guess break that down. What does that look like in your practice? What exactly do you do as an obesity specialist?
Yeah, so it's a newer specialty. The board specialty came out in 2014, so right when I graduated residency. The idea is we had bariatric surgery, and you can go and do special certifications in that and get trained to do bariatric surgery, but there was nothing for like the medical weight loss. You had a lot of hucksters and and charlatans pushing their HCG diets and all sorts of
Mm.
B12 shots and stuff that just didn't work and making up stuff about hormones and whatever. But there was no like standardized board certification. And then this American Board of Obesity Medicine came out to try to standardize it. But a lot of hucksters take the certification and
Hmm.
then use it as a way to promote them. It's just like you can't even
Wow.
stop
That
them.
appeal to authority for some people, huh?
But the idea is to somewhat at least give some standardization. But I've seen some really bad players. I'm just like, come on, don't just give this. It's hard to stop them if you take the tests and do all the stuff. It's like, well, whatever. They know what to put on the tests apparently. But the idea is basically a medical disease management of weight and obesity as opposed
Hmm.
to the HCG, whatever magic beans that people are promoting from their clinic or whatever like that. So it's to me, it's more of like a cardiometabolic type of
Okay.
deal. So as opposed to just like being weight centric, yes,
Hmm.
obesity is excess adiposity or excess adipose tissue, and we want to eat people finding ways to help them eat fewer calories, but it's coming at it from an angle of that the medical biological angle.
Right.
And truly, the ideal situation is you have a multidisciplinary. What I do is very multidisciplinary. I work with dietitians, strength coaches. I want to
Hmm.
add in psychologists as well, and then I come in
Amazing.
with the medicines to basically help them biologically when they
Yeah.
can't do it from a behavior standpoint. That's the gist. But I like to go beyond and look at their cholesterol and make sure that everything else is metabolically optimized as opposed to just like, here, lose the weight, see you later, goodbye,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
So you currently kind of have like the optimal situation in which a client would come to you, and then you have psychology, you have the strength training, you have the nutrition, and then you have the weight loss drugs to help aid in that whole process.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's right.
that
That's exactly right.
I love that because,
Uh-huh.
if someone's going to just a regular doctor, they're going to be like, well, do you eat 1,200 calories, go keto, or whatever, they
Yeah,
do, right? And it
it's
really is a multifaceted situation in which people need all these things, right? It's mindset, it's behavior,
yeah.
it's you got to get into the gym. So the fact that you have all of that is actually quite amazing.
Yeah, it's the ideal situation. Now the issue is
Yeah.
I had to leave the current system. So you can't do it in a current like if you go to your regular
Mm.
primary care doctor, you're gonna get 5-10 minutes.
Yep.
If they have a dietitian around, but they're not gonna refer to a dietitian. They probably don't even know a dietitian to refer to, and your insurance might not even pay for it. So I did something called direct care. It's kind of a newer movement. It's not concierge care, although we
Mhm.
give what I would call like more concierge like service, but it's kind of like it's a subscription type of thing. So it's
Okay.
$150 a month, but which people are like, "Oh, that's expensive," but it's like it's actually less than what you would pay. Well, you go to the doctor, you pay your copay, but
Mhm.
they're gonna bill your insurance like a couple $100 for that visit. So what we do is we bypass the insurance, and then it's just this direct relationship. And the numbers actually work out because so I can work, people can text me and whatever, and they can ask me
Uh-huh.
questions. My dietitian can jump in, strength training programs, all these different things. They can get it all for just the subscription cost. It's in the United States, everybody wants to use their insurance for things. And I,
Mhm.
I understand it's a cultural thing, but it ruins it because the doctor, in order to keep the lights on, they're going to have to churn through patients because then they have to pay a person to then do all the billing for them. And so in the
Mm.
end, they're not actually making that $200. They're making a much smaller cut of that because then they have to pay people to make sure they get all that money. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh, yeah.
screw it, I'm getting out of here, but I want to do it the way that I think is right, as opposed to if you're in a regular primary care clinic, you're seeing 20, 30 people a day.
Yeah.
How are you going to give anything good to that person that's in
Yeah.
front of you? So that's the
Yeah.
gist.
Absolutely, and like you said, like we need to figure out ways to get people to reduce their calorie consumption, and at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's why so many influencers out there like just eat less, right? Eat less, move more. While technically true, it's
Yeah.
not that simple. It's so much more. It's so much more
Right.
complicated than that.
And then you got other influencers who are like, well, it's your cortisol. It's your
Oh my
Yeah,
cortisol.
God.
And
I can't
cortisol.
even.
you
I
got to
can't.
stop. Well, one of my patients the other day said their obesity doctor, and I looked them up, and they are definitely a quack. I was like, oh my God, they were promoting the HCG diet, all sorts of just
Oh God.
nonsense stuff. But they told her she loves swimming, and they're like, you got to stop swimming. That's gonna make you gain more weight because of the cortisol.
I saw your post about that yesterday. I
I
said,
And
did
"What?"
too.
people thought I was. They're like, no way. And I was like, no, this I can't say too much because it's a HIPAA thing
Right.
and
Sure.
whatever. But this patient is higher level education, extremely smart, and she'd follow me, and that was the reason she was like, okay, I can't be seeing this doctor. I know this isn't. There's no way this is right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the big red flag to her. And there were some other big red flags in the visit. So, but like, this is what people do. They're either not helpful or
Yeah.
they just make up stuff. So
Right.
it's really frustrating.
It's like when in doubt, refer out. I
Yeah.
As
it's
coaches, I mean, we
it's
kind of
really
live by
that
that because
simple.
we're more limited in our scope of practice. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned cortisol there. Could we talk for a few minutes here about
Yeah.
hormones? Like, what are our hormones actually doing, and what's actually happening, and how do they contribute, or what role do they play in weight loss, weight gain?
Yeah, there are different types of hormones in the body and they have different functions. They help communicate with other organs of our body. We have hormones that come from our brain that then communicate with our other organs that then send out other hormones that then have function. So, like thyroid, for example, we have these signals that come from our brain, two different spots. You got the hypothalamus that goes to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland sends out something called thyroid stimulating hormone that tells your thyroid to then send out actual thyroid hormone, which then also gets converted into more active thyroid hormone in your tissues. And that's one that controls your metabolic rate. And that's what everybody, wants it to be your thyroid because it's like, well, obviously my metabolism's low. I'm gaining weight. It's got to be my thyroid. Very likely not your thyroid. It's relatively rare. Although I have hypothyroidism,
I was gonna say, yeah.
Hashimoto's, but the most of the weight gain that you see from it, it's actually from fluid. It's not
Mm.
unless you've had it for so long that you was undiagnosed, but a lot of it's, fluid. So
Sure.
that's like thyroid hormone, but then there are other hormones, like, people love to talk about cortisol.
Yes.
It's a stress hormone. Without it, we would die. We need it. It helps regulate all sorts of things in our body. Anti-inflammatory, helps with our blood sugar regulation when we need it and during stress. Otherwise, we'd literally die. And so it's a normal physiologic occurrence
Yeah.
that our cortisol would go up after exercise. It's
Mm-hmm.
how it works.
Hmm.
And when in the morning when we wake up, our cortisol is higher. And what people take a little bit of nuggets of truth and then turn it into a pathological situation where they then want to sell you something to try to fix something that's normal. And that's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
they make their money. They get viral on TikTok and Instagram or wherever, Threads. I don't really care what it is.
I
We
actually saw
talk.
something on Threads yesterday. Somebody said, "Don't exercise because it raises your cortisol." It's like that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
It's so frustrating. So there are pathological conditions. There's something called Cushing's disease, Cushing's
Mm-hmm.
syndrome. You can either have a tumor in your brain that sends this too much signal to your adrenal glands to make too much cortisol, or you can have a tumor on your adrenal glands that makes too much cortisol itself. You can also take too much exogenous cortisol in the form of like prednisone, other types of steroids that are similar to cortisol. That's actually the most common thing. People on prednisone for some inflammatory disorder, and their face kind of gets round.
Mm-hmm.
You start having more abdominal obesity. The thing is, still, even in those pathological conditions, it doesn't negate thermodynamics. Because like if you didn't eat anything, you still need substrate to create mass. So
Hmm.
what the hormone can do is at pathological levels, it can shift where you store adipose tissue. It changes enzymes that change where you would store tissue. So you do see that your arms and legs actually get skinnier, and then you start storing it more abdominally. That's pathological level. I mean, magnitudes
Right.
of levels higher than what we see compared to physiologic, meaning normal everyday differences.
So
So when you
where the fat is being stored is just changes. It's not, these things aren't inherently making you gain fat.
no, the one thing they can do, they are related to potentially appetite changes. So then you could
Yeah.
eat more. So then if you're eating more, it can then exacerbate it or aggravate it by then you see it stored in the places you hate. People probably wouldn't hate it as much as if they stored it in their butt and thighs, as
Right.
opposed to it's the belly. Nobody wants the belly fat. And the other thing is belly fat is common. So it's like it's got to be the cortisol. That's the belly fat
Hmm.
hormone. It's really frustrating because don't tell people to stop exercising. That doesn't even, that's not going to help you unless you're overtraining and you just need a recovery break because you're just doing too much. That
And most people
happens.
aren't overtraining, right?
Most
Like, let's
people
be
are
real.
not.
No.
Most
We're
people
undertraining. We're
are
under
not
muscled.
an
We're
Olympic athlete. That's
yeah.
right.
Right.
Mhm. What we're saying then is it's still calories, just all these things impact calories and can make it more
Yeah,
difficult for people. And I think that that's really upsetting for a lot of people out
it
there
is
too.
upsetting.
Yeah.
I always say that they're intertwined. I've done so many memes and reels and whatever. I honestly repeat the same thing over and
Hmm.
over again, but
Boring basic
Yeah.
shit.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, they're intertwined. Yeah, sure, when it comes down to it, it's calorie deficits and energy balance, but they're intertwined in a way to where the hormones, like say thyroid, can change the out. And then
Hmm.
there's other hormones in the body, leptin, ghrelin, GLP-1, all these other different
And
things that can affect the in, how much we want to ingest. And then testosterone, estrogen, cortisol can change where we store it. That's kind of the gist. They're so intertwined that it's like, well,
yeah.
yeah, they can affect that. And then how much we eat can affect those. They're intertwined, but
Right.
Absolutely.
it's not magic. We understand it pretty well.
As a parent, our days are filled with joy, challenges, and countless memories of connection. And let's be real here, more often than not, chaos can feel downright unavoidable. And in those moments, maintaining our peace and well being are absolutely crucial. And you should know by now that I love talking about all things mindfulness. So, this message is for all you mindful parents out there seeking a natural path to tranquility and presence. Cured Nutrition understands the unique stressors we face every day. Whether it's waking up early to take the kids to school or playing taxi as you shuttle everyone from practice to practice, let's not forget that you still have your daily responsibilities with your own career. That's why they created their Serenity Gummies, your go to ally in managing the complexities of parenthood with ease. These gummies aren't just a treat, they're a blend of science backed, health supporting ingredients like full spectrum cannabinoids, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom, and L theanine. Each ingredient is chosen for its ability to support your physical, mental, and emotional sense of calm. Now, imagine unwinding from the day's hustle with a natural alternative to alcohol, helping you to improve your presence, mindfulness, and overall well being. Now, oftentimes we turn to alcohol as a way to alleviate stress, but take it from someone that has a long look at his relationship with alcohol. That really only makes things worse. The Serenity Gummies offer a more holistic tool to have in your arsenal so that you can feel good about feeling good. I personally enjoy the passion fruit flavor. It's sweet with some kind of an earthy undertone. I'm no expert when it comes to tasting things, I just know what works for me, what tastes good. In addition to that, each gummy is precisely dosed to guide me to my happy place. Now, Cured Nutrition is offering an exclusive 20% off discount just for our listeners when you purchase Serenity Gummies. Visit www.curednutrition.com/CTC and use coupon code CTC at checkout. That's CURED nutrition.com/CTC, coupon code CTC to embrace a state of relaxation and balance. Remember, protecting your peace is just one gummy away. Now take a moment for yourself and find serenity in the midst of life's whirlwind moments. Because you, as a parent, deserve to support your well being and do something for yourself so you can continue serving others like the badass that you are. from a lifestyle perspective, especially with cortisol, right? Because exercise is an acute response, it's a temporary response. But what about like lifestyle changes? What can people do there to help, improve their cortisol, their leptin, their ghrelin responses?
Yeah, so, like, I mean, if you're up at night doom scrolling on whatever your choice of social media, looking at politics and arguing with people, and then you're upset and then you don't sleep well, the influencer person's gonna try to sell you ashwagandha, rhodiola, and phosphatidylserine or some cortisol blocking thing, but really the underlying issue is that you're not sleeping well, and sure, those things will disturb your diurnal curves of your cortisol and whatever, but it wasn't the cortisol that was the issue, it was
Mhm.
the sleep and changes in lifestyle. Those are not sexy. People do not wanna hear that. They wanna hear that it was that it's a supplement thing, but you don't have a supplement you don't have a rhodiola
Right.
deficiency. The rhodiola, maybe that will help calm you down to where you're like, "Oh, I don't even wanna go on social media." Maybe that's the case, and stuff like that, but it wasn't the underlying issue. So,
Yeah,
yes, make sure that you're eating enough, nourishing your body. The standard, so boring stuff that people just
I know.
don't. I mean, people, I'll say my patients like it, that's why they come to me because 'cause they're like, I'm so sick of getting duped by these
Mhm.
people selling me a $300 detox." I'll never forget in private practice, like, about 10 years ago when one of my patients who they were like Medicaid, they paid a chiropractor $300 for a parasite detox because they thought that was gonna be the issue, and it was so frustrating because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, they're so good at marketing that they'll really squeeze on your pain points and turn the knife that they get you to buy a $300 detox when you can't afford that. There's no way they could afford that.
Yeah. That's so sad to me. I mean, honestly, I don't know how these people live with themselves
I don't know.
to be so shady and shisty
On a
to just,
pile of money. I think they sleep on a
play
pile
off
of money and
people.
they're okay with
Yeah,
it. I don't know.
it's so fucked.
It is.
I mean, I used to be one of those people that would buy all the supplements, and that's why I'm so adamant
Yep.
about you don't need all this shit. Trust me,
Yep.
I've spent thousands of my husband's money. I'm surprised he's still with me. I mean, everything, my all my hormones were wrong. I was
Yep.
going to chiropractors, this and that, and
Yeah.
before I met Jordan Syatt, and he's like, you just need to start tracking your calories and weighing and
Yeah.
measuring your food. It's not,
That was when
and
you were
it's
drinking, right, Beth?
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like
Yeah.
binge drinking, juicing, taking supplements.
There
And
you
so it's
go.
like I can see them a mile away. It's like I was you.
That should be your new book, Binge Drink Detox.
Right, right? Oh my gosh. I would love to actually start talking about some GLP-1 since that
Yeah.
is I'd really love to actually know more about it and have our users, our followers
Yeah.
know more about it. So, can you talk to us like I guess how GLP-1s came about
Yeah.
and how you use them in your practice and we can just go from there.
I love the story because it's really interesting. I've met a few of the originating scientists and
Uh-huh.
that figured it out. They're older now, but they're just and they're super humble too. Not like the people you see on social media. These are like brilliant scientists that are just they don't even want to take the compliment when I'm just like, "Wow, I love you guys."
Yeah.
Basically, GLP-1, a natural occurring hormone that is released from our intestines, glucagon-like peptide 1 after we eat food and in general carbohydrate containing food. They figured this out, this incretin effect, they call it, because they'd inject people with glucose, this is like in the 50s, into their veins versus they had people ingest glucose and they wanted to measure their insulin response. And they found that people that ingested glucose had a larger insulin response than those who injected it. And I think that's so cool because I would think that if you injected glucose straight into the veins, it would go directly to your pancreas, which then senses the glucose, which would then shuttle out all the insulin to get that glucose into your cells. But no, when they drank it, there was some sort of effect that made your glucose or your insulin go higher and have a larger, more pronounced effect. So they called it the
Hmm.
incretin effect, some sort of intestinal secretion of some hormone, incretin.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until later on, a few decades later, where they figured out the different types of incretins, one of them being GIP, which is another hormone they're studying. We can get into that. But then the other one is GLP-1 in the later 80s. They figured it out, the glucagon like peptide 1. They teased it out and figured out like, oh, okay, this is one of them that is definitely having an effect here. The problem is our own body breaks down natural GLP-1 within a minute or two. So when anybody sees all these supplements out there that are
Mm.
claiming to be GLP-1 supplements,
Mm-hmm.
every single one of them is nonsense. They're a scam. Like I can't believe these. I don't even know how Meta and all these people allow people to run ads. I tried to run an
Yeah.
ad the other day for my clinic and they shut down my whole thing. And I was like, did you guys even look at this? And it was probably because I used one wrong word, and yet other people
Mm-hmm.
are selling just absolute snake oil. It's very
Like you
Right.
said
frustrating.
earlier, there's the whole playbook. They're all following the same one.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Hmm.
bad players will find bad ways to
Yep.
unfortunately. The
Yeah.
long
So
I think the long I will win in the long run, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a long play as
I
opposed to a
agree.
short play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These
So these
bastards.
GLP-1 medications, they've been around for quite some time, like
Yeah.
decades. In the early 90s is when they were first started being prescribed, right? For
So
insulin resistance.
2005 is when the first one was
Okay,
approved.
got it.
It was in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s when they started figuring out how to do this. Because so the problem is our own GLP-1 is broken down within a minute or two. Our own enzymes break it down so quickly. So it's like, oh, okay, could we just infuse a bunch of human GLP-1? No, it'll just be broken down quickly. They did make drugs that stop the enzyme from breaking it down, so you get like 2 to 3 times more of our own GLP-1. Doesn't actually have much of a weight loss effect, but it does help with blood sugar control. But like, so that's why I always say, like, look, these pharmaceutical drugs that will boost your own GLP-1 don't even have a weight loss effect. So
Mm-hmm.
you're all a bunch of scammers, and you all should be ashamed of themselves. And their doctors even promoting this. It's
That's really what blows my mind is
Yeah.
y'all have
Yeah.
a code of ethics to be following here. And
you
these
would think
people,
so. It is so bad. I'm so scorned and disenfranchised from everybody. I just think everybody's a piece of shit.
I don't blame you because I
I
feel the
hear
same
you.
way. I think everyone's a piece of shit until
They
they prove the
are.
other. It's frightening, to be
It
honest.
is.
And I'm on your side on that one. And
Good.
I'm sure we can agree that there's a few that we
We all
probably
agree
know.
here.
Those
Um,
guys. So basically what these researchers did, they found ways to then go, okay, could we change the molecule to last longer in the body? One scientist specifically found the Gila monster that has venom that messes people up. This Gila, little lizard looking thing. And so, you see all the fear mongering around. You're injecting venom, Gila monster venom, that's going to kill you. No, it's just a part of it, of the venom was about 40% homologous. It looked 40% similar to our own GLP-1, but it had the benefit of not being broken down. That was the first one that came out. It was called exenatide. The trade name is Byetta. Twice a day injection. Didn't lead to a lot of weight loss, but helped a little bit with blood sugars. That was the first one approved.
mhm,
The very quickly though, within a year or two, something called liraglutide was approved, and that was Victoza. If anybody remembers that listening, Victoza for type 2 diabetes, originally approved for type 2 diabetes. That's where they took human GLP-1 and they modified it. They put a little thing on it to make it not be broken down as quickly. That was a once a day injection. That was like 2008 or 9 or something around there, 2007, 8, 9, somewhere around that time. They actually studied it and jacked up the dose. That's in 2014. That was the first one approved for weight management, a high dose liraglutide. They called that Saxenda. Yeah, it's like 7 or 8% total body weight loss. And I always tell everybody, like, look, we all know good responders from diet and exercise, but on average, when you put let's say you put 1,000 people on diet and exercise that all have obesity, the average weight loss is somewhere around 5 to 6% total body weight loss. So if you're 200 pounds on average, someone's going to lose 10 to 12 pounds. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot because you see other people, they've lost 50, 100 pounds. It's just an average. It's an averages thing.
mhm,
So with
Sure.
Saxenda, it was somewhere around like 6 or 7. It was a little bit better than diet and exercise alone, intensive diet and exercise alone, I should say. It was expensive too. Well, there was a lot of nausea.
mhm,
People kind of lost a little bit of weight. So it was like, all right, this is okay. That was 2014. It wasn't for a few years until Ozempic came out. Now everybody calls every GLP-1
naturally.
Ozempic. It's like Kleenex. It's not, but
Right.
it's not.
That's a brand.
But it's a semaglutide. It's like the younger, better looking brother of liraglutide. It's a similar one, but they've adjusted it to where now it lasts about a week in the body. That was Ozempic, semaglutide. That was around 2016, 17. We were doing it off label when we could get it, meaning they didn't
Hmm.
have type 2 diabetes, but we wanted them to lose weight. But it only went up to like 1 milligram. And so people started losing weight with that one. It was 2021 where they jacked up the dose of that semaglutide
And
to
that's when
two.
it started blowing up online.
That's when it started blowing up online. So that was Wegovy. It went into
Okay.
shortage. The Novo Nordisk, I was just on their, I just did an advisory board for them yesterday. Um, and, it was kind of discussed like they really dropped the ball on this. They don't know how they didn't see the huge boom coming, but they went into a shortage. It was such a big deal. So everybody had it, then they couldn't get it. It
Mm.
was a really, really frustrating time. That's
Hmm.
semaglutide. That one does around 15% total body weight loss. So now all of a sudden we're cooking because we go from that, 5, 6% lifestyle, then a little bit better with that liraglutide. And there's some older drugs. There's one called Qsymia, which combines phentermine and topiramate. Older drugs that gets around 10% total body weight loss. So that was decent. But now we're getting 15 bariatric surgeries around 30%. So it's like, wow, now we
Hmm.
got something here. The newest one that's out, and there's going to be newer ones that are coming out, it's called tirzepatide.
Hmm.
And if you know the brand name Mounjaro, which is for type 2 diabetes, and then Zepbound, which is for
Hmm.
weight management. This one is a synthetic peptide that hits both GLP-1 receptors and GIP, and that's the other incretin, glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. It's a mouthful. You don't have to memorize it, but it can hit both receptors. It's a twincretin or a co-receptor
Okay.
agonist. That one gets around like 21, 22, a little bit over 20% total body weight loss. So now all of a sudden we're getting close to what you kind of see with bariatric surgery levels. And
Yeah.
well, that's a
Well,
once weekly injection. And what I always tell everybody is that patients claim that they're not everybody. Most people will say like, oh my God, it stopped me from thinking about food all day.
right.
It stopped me from craving. It stopped me from being so hungry and wanting a second serving. I've been eating so well. I'm eating my broccoli and whatever. You name it. Whatever good
The food noise, right?
nutrition.
Like, which
Yeah.
is a newer term and not a
Yeah.
clinical term either.
Yeah. It's not yeah. So it's a controversy because we're like, we don't want to just make a drug to fix something that may not be an issue. But if somebody's struggling with their weight and they're thinking about food all day, it's like, okay, this can kind of at least explain why
Hmm.
it works for you. So yeah, this tirzepatide specifically, I always tell people these things help you do all the things you want to do, but you're just struggling to
Yeah.
do them.
The way I kind of see it, and I think a lot of like science-based coaches, evidence-based coaches, and doctors such as yourself say it levels the playing field for people in a way,
Hmm.
Yeah,
right? Because people that are struggling with obesity, it's not like they haven't tried diet and exercise before.
yeah,
Yeah.
They probably tried that for so long now, but for one reason or another, they can't stop thinking about food or
yeah,
whatever it might be, right? Like it takes the intensity of it away.
yeah. And people want to say that these things are like fat burners or magic, but like
Hmm.
The easy
just
way out, yeah.
well, and I was just looking, but some patients swear up and down they're eating 1,200 calories. I mean, like they're 300 pounds, they think they're eating 800 or 1,200 calories, and I'm like, and they swear up and down, and I don't want to be the jerk doctor to be like, no, you're not.
Gotta call bullshit, right? Yeah,
No,
because
Right.
that's very upsetting too. Because then you don't want to call them a liar, right? Right, but
Right.
it's very
it's not that
difficult.
you may
Yeah.
they actually may believe that, and we know there's research out there that humans are just really bad at estimating their caloric intake
Extremely
or
bad.
just tracking it even a lot of times too.
Extremely bad. And they swear up and down that the medicine has to do something more than help them eat fewer calories. But all the data show that maybe there's a benefit to the metabolic adaptations that you see. So you probably talked about it, but basically the metabolic adaptation is when you lose weight, let's say at least 10% of your weight. So let's say you're 200 pounds, you go down to 180 pounds. You at 180 pounds, your basal or resting metabolic rate is actually maybe a little bit lower than what we'd expect based on your body composition and size. So it could, and it's not even that much. It's like
Yeah.
it's slightly lower. So that
Right.
it's thought that these drugs may help minimize that metabolic adaptation, but it hasn't panned out in humans. And even if that were the case, it's the equivalent of a few Oreos. It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
It's 100,
Not a
200
huge
calories
difference.
maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
But when they look at these medicines, really just help people eat fewer calories. And patients claim they're like, nope, I was eating 1,200 calories before. I'm eating 1,200 calories now, and now I just lost 100 pounds. I'm like, literally physically impossible. But you know what? I don't want to argue with you because it doesn't really matter. You're doing fine. But it's a very hard discussion to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Who is a good candidate for a GLP-1 and where should they go
Yeah.
if they are struggling with obesity? Because I feel like, and I don't feel, I know that people are going med spas.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Compounding pharmacies.
Where would you recommend someone go and not go?
Yeah.
Oh,
So there's a future state where I could see everybody's on these things. I don't know what's going to happen. It could be that
yeah.
I'm taking one and not for weight necessarily, but for maybe cardiovascular prevention. And everybody's talking about microdosing and small little doses here and there. We don't have where that's a data free zone.
We actually want to talk about that a little bit if
Yeah,
you
I
care
have that in
to.
my notes.
it might be fine. I'm much more like, hey, hypothetically it could be okay, but like we don't know that. So we do have good indications for it. It's so for type 2 diabetes, uh clear indication for it. Blood sugar's a little bit elevated or a lot of bit elevated, clear indication for one of these medicines. And then we get into obesity. Now the controversy is, it's all based on BMI pretty much.
Mm,
And what they're trying to switch to is more of what's called like a clinical definition of obesity. Because like you can have somebody that's a 24, 25 BMI that has like prediabetes, hypertension,
hmm
high cholesterol, all these different things. And you can have a 30 BMI or 32 or 35, even whatever, and they are like starkly healthy otherwise,
Yeah.
despite their weight. And it's possible insurances might not approve the medicine for that
I
'Smaller
25,
hear that a
person.
lot. Yeah.
despite they need it. They have too much body fat on their body that's causing dysfunction, that's causing them harm. Whereas the other person stores their weight just fine, and it's
hmm
actually, the weight isn't fun necessarily for that person, but it's not metabolically harming them, and it may not even be physically harming them. They may not have any sleep apnea or knee pain or joint issues, and they could, but I'm just kind of trying to make a stark contrast there. So
hmm
the FDA guidelines are a 30 BMI, body mass index, kilograms per meter squared, and that doesn't go into muscularity or whatever, but it's a 30 BMI. So technically, you would qualify if you had a 30 BMI, regardless of your body composition. A doctor should assess that, but like they don't always. But or a 27 BMI plus what's called a weight related comorbidity. And this is anything weight. So prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, osteoarthritis of your knees, obstructive sleep apnea, those types of weight related issues. PCOS would be considered one as well.
hmm
So those are the indications.
Okay.
I would say, though, that these medications would be something for someone who has excess body fat that's causing them issues of some sort. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Would I prescribe to somebody with a 20? I'll get these patients. They come in, they're like, I have a 22 BMI. I want to get down to, well, they won't say that. They'll say, I have to do the calculation, but they're a certain weight. They're pretty thin and they just want to
hmm
get another 10 pounds off. And I always have to be like, I'm not the person for you to do this. It's
Yeah.
first do no harm. I can't say that this won't harm you. And I don't think this is going to benefit you other than from a purely aesthetic vanity standpoint. And I think vanity's fine. If we all like my patients all want to look better too. I
Right.
don't
I mean, who
see,
doesn't want to look
Yeah.
better? Yeah.
but
Exactly. Yeah.
it's more of so I come at it from that clinical medical standpoint. So then they're going to go to the med spa place, and they will sure as hell give it to them because they're going to sell it to them in a
Right.
form that probably isn't regulated. They'll sell it
hmm
right out of their office and inject them right there and charge them $1,000 or something like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
obviously, I want everybody to. So, my clinic's in all 48 different states. It should be in 50 here soon. I'd love everybody to go there, but like, if you have a good primary care doctor and you feel like you have excess body fat that's beyond what's healthy for your body, and you
Hmm.
have some of these weight related issues, and you can look at your BMI again. It's the FDA label, so like I can't change that. But the
Yeah.
your primary care doctor, if they are, I don't want to say smart because they may be smart, but just lack. They may not understand these medicines, but if they're open to
Right.
at least discussing it, they should be able to do it. But obviously, otherwise, you'd want to go to a clinic like mine.
Right.
If you if you go to one of these sketchy med spas, they'll give it to you. It doesn't matter who you are, and
Yeah.
you don't know
Well,
what you're going to get when you get
And
there.
I think as
that
coaches, Beth, myself, like that's where we take issue with these drugs, right? The overprescription of them
Yeah,
from these corner med spas,
it's
people that
terrible.
don't necessarily need them, especially because then they're
they're
not
getting no guidance.
they're not getting the guidance, right?
No,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Beth. They're not getting the nutritional guidance, the behavior change aspect of like why do we get here in the first place, and being under muscled, which is a huge problem in our society, right? And they're not being prescribed strength training, and I know that's a very very important thing, and that's something that you do is have resistance training alongside, and like you said, with the registered dietitians, you get nutrition support and behavior support.
that's exactly right. So they'll get the prescription. They'll go out. They may have side effects. They won't be monitored very closely. And who knows what's in what they're actually
Yeah.
injecting?
Because they're going to like a compounded pharmacy to get those drugs,
Yeah,
right?
and I've made people get so mad at me about it all. They're like, "You're a big pharma shill," and I'm like, "No, you guys aren't thinking about this deeply." They're like, "No, big pharma is corrupt." I'm like, "And you think little pharma
Right.
isn't
Little
corrupt?
pharma.
They're
Little
more
supplement pharma.
they're way more corrupt.
Yeah.
They're not doing the research to actually develop these drugs. They're copying intellectual property just to make their buck, and they're selling it to you directly. It's they're actually making way more money.
Huge markup.
Yeah.
It's actually insane. So they're not the good guys. I think they have their place during the shortages. It was like one of those things where it's like, well, yeah,
There was a need for it.
but what they did was they exploited the loophole and then started selling it to everybody.
Mm.
Everybody and their
Yep.
brother, mother, sister, and uncles, aunts, and everybody, grandmas, whoever. Now all those people, now that the loophole's closing, now they're without their medicine, and yeah,
Yeah.
they may
Which is
go
a
in.
big problem too.
Yeah,
Like people that have been prescribed these from those med spas, because the compounding pharmacies, right? What is it? Nova, Neurodisc, right? Is
so Novo Nordisk is the semaglutide company that developed it, Ozempic and Wegovy,
they just
and then
won a
Okay.
lawsuit, right? Against
there's a
something.
bunch of them.
Yeah.
They outsourcing the OFA, this compounding place, tried to sue them, and Eli Lilly, who's the tirzepatide Zepbound company. And I think at the end of the day, though, they do need to bring these prices down because what they're going to see,
Yes.
these drugs are basically, it is kind of for the rich. I mean, like I can't even
Especially
like
compared to other countries where it's really hard to argue like that big pharma is not corrupt when we see these drugs available for pennies
hundred
on the
bucks.
dollar compared to here,
Yeah,
right?
100
Yeah.
bucks over wherever, Brazil or the UK or wherever. They have different prices.
Which that
Sometimes
can be
it's
true, but it doesn't negate the fact that these are actually really powerful drugs that can change people's lives too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what they need to do is really get the prices down. Well, I think we're going to see it. We're going to see all these other competitors. I mean, there's newer drugs coming down through the pipeline, and we're not going to have this kind of duopoly, monopoly type of situation with Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, who I think are, I like them in that they develop these, but like clearly it's ridiculous. And it's not just them. There's also these pharmacy benefit managers who are these in between middlemen, so to speak, who negotiate between the manufacturers and the insurances, and they're getting their kickback. So instead of
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it doubles the price. Everybody loses
Why do we
out
need a middleman,
basically.
right? Like, no.
There's no point to having them, honestly. So if they could make these drugs for easily $100, and they'd still make so much money,
Yeah.
honestly.
I see those depositions that they have in front of the congressmen and senators, and how they dodge those questions about why is it not cheaper here. They don't want they will never answer that question. But
Mm.
so going back to
Yeah.
like being the crackdown on these med spas and
Yeah.
the overprescription of these meds, we've seen a lot of headlines, and this is one thing that the influencers out there that are nefarious in nature like to talk about is how, oh, you're going to gain all that weight back after you
Yeah.
get off these meds, right? So let's cut the crap here. What does that actually look like? Is there
Yeah.
some, weight gain if you do stop these medications? What should we expect there? My understanding is these are kind of a forever drug because they
Yeah.
don't really change anything in your body unless you're taking them.
Permanently. No, you're right. It's similar to I always use blood pressure medicine. So
Yeah.
let's say you do all the diet and exercise things that we know help lower blood pressure. Your blood pressure is still 140 over 90 or something. It's elevated. And the doctor says, let's put you on a blood pressure medicine, something like whatever, lisinopril. There's a bunch of them. And the blood pressure goes down to 120 over 80. And then they're like, all right, your blood pressure is good. Let's take you off the medicine now. It just those biological things that drive it back up will reoccur. With weight, this is why we call it treating the obesity. There's a lot of semantics involved here, but whatever. We're treating what I would call the dysregulated appetite because,
Hmm.
like, we know people need to eat fewer calories. These drugs are not magical in some sort of way where they magically make you fat
You're
go
not making
away.
a Twinkie 50 calories, right?
No, but this people think they are. I mean, this is what we kind of talked. I
Yeah.
feel bad, but that's how they work. So if somebody uses diet and exercise to lose weight and they stop doing whatever it was. So for example, calorie tracking. You can switch people off to other ways of trying to monitor their intake. Whatever that is, you can find ways to keep people eating fewer calories. And sometimes that works. But like with this, we're literally treating the dysregulated appetite, whatever
Right.
it is, you can't feel full after a normal meal. You don't feel satiated. You're craving a lot despite
Hmm.
all the behavior therapies that we do and despite all the good and healthy foods that we're trying to get you to do, and you still keep thinking about food. So then you put them on the medicine, they stop that. When you stop the medicine, if there was an underlying biological thing that caused that dysregulated appetite in the first place, it will likely come back. Now,
Yep.
people that are wrong saying everybody needs to stay on these forever because they've actually done it. They've put everybody on the drug and then part of the way through they randomized a portion of those to a placebo and then you see a bunch of them regain their weight, but not everybody regains their weight.
Okay.
And we hear them. You'll see it on whenever I post about it. They're like, I've kept 100 pounds off. I stopped it a year ago. But they're few and far between. It's like 10, maybe
Hmm.
10%, 5, 10, 15% of people. So it can happen. And what I think in those people, they must not have had that biological issue in the first place.
Yep.
Those people probably, had you found the right coaching aspect, I think they probably would have been successful without it. That's my guess.
Hmm.
Can't prove it. I don't know how that's a $1 trillion question of who those people are. But in
Right.
general, yeah, if you're treating that underlying biological issue and you remove it, likely it'll come back. It would be so the other example would be going back to hypertension. We do know of people that come off their blood pressure medicine. So,
Hmm.
and it's because they probably did some lifestyle changes
Yeah.
that allowed them and then continued with those that allowed them to come off their blood pressure medicine and they continued those lifestyle changes. That's the key. So I likely going to have to be on one of these long term unless in the future they're looking at editing our genes and all sorts of crazy I like there's some crazy shit coming down the pipeline. I don't even know
Who
what to
knows what the
expect.
future holds?
I don't
Yeah.
know. So that's the gist. For now though, they are long term for most
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a question about because I've been seeing this and also in my DMs, also another doctor that we know, I believe that she's also promoting this now, microdosing GLP-1s for menopause.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To get rid of the menopause visceral belly fat, which we all know comes down to being in a calorie deficit. Is there data supporting the microdosing for GLP-1s for menopause? And she also talked about inflammation and she was throwing around all these things, right?
Yeah, buzzwords, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I'm going to ask Dr. Nadolsky about this. I didn't say that, but that's one of my
Yeah.
questions that I want to talk about because I feel like it's another thing, right? That may possibly being misused, or maybe it's not. Maybe actually it's legitimate. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is where I say like microdosing, it just means a smaller dose of what you would use compared to the clinical doses that are end up going a lot higher.
Hmm.
But you can use lower doses and they can still have an effect. But so somebody in menopause that uses a small dose of these to lose some weight, it's literally because it's going to help them eat fewer calories. It's
Right.
not magically burning off the visceral fat. And they've done this
Right.
many times, and people thought that maybe exercise is better than diet when it comes to reducing visceral fat. That's a thought that's out there. But very smart physicists, Kevin Hall, you can look up the studies. He's the guy that
Mm-hmm.
did The Biggest Loser. He's just a
Kevin
brilliant
Hall.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's my
we love Kevin
friend,
Hall.
smart guy. And they actually looked at it, and it looks like it really depends on how much visceral fat you had in the first place. And it really doesn't matter however you create the calorie deficit, that's what's going to be getting rid of the visceral fat. So it's not like these
Okay.
medicines target your visceral fat and somehow
Right.
melt it away. Now, actually, there are some interesting things about retatrutide, which is coming out probably in a year or two, that does actually have receptors on the liver that may actually preferentially burn or oxidize liver fat. But either way, in general, these current ones, if you do a microdose and you lose belly fat, it's because it's helping you get into a mild calorie deficit. And
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
people can get mad about that. Now, when you talk about inflammation, people throw that word around. It's an immune
Mm-hmm.
system reaction. It's just we actually need inflammation again, kind of like
Right.
Sure.
cortisol, whatever.
Not necessarily a bad thing. Hmm.
Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
acute, like sprain your ankle and all these different, whatever. But chronic inflammation is bad. So chronic inflammatory diseases, you got psoriatic arthritis, all whatever. Also
Right.
rheumatoid arthritis, all sorts of different things. And we have anti-inflammatory biological medicine. So these drugs do have anti-inflammatory effects. But when people throw around, I just have inflammation, it's like, what do you mean? You just kind
What's
of feel
inflamed?
So then it's fair. Would it be fair to assume with that anti-inflammatory effect, then we're seeing some water reduction, water weight
potentially.
reduction than when we first start
I
taking
think
them?
that's when they describe it, that's got to be what they're describing, is that
Mm-hmm.
they're
Makes
having
sense, Matt.
and but the other thing is these medicines may have like a small diuresis type
Mm-hmm.
of effect. There could be
Okay.
some things there. But yeah, maybe they feel inflamed, just kind of achy and whatever. Maybe it's taking care of that. Some puffiness, maybe. But like, yeah, the visceral fat, it's helping them get into a lower calorie deficit. But I just hate it when people first of all, the people making those comments, and I know who you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
they're just
Yes.
charlatans,
I know.
and
I
they
know.
have millions of followers, very frustrating to see,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because they're just spreading abs they're not the people at the conferences that I go to
Right.
recording they're not doing the research. They're just making up stuff. They don't even know how to read the research papers. You can tell.
Yeah.
I go,
Oh,
"Did
I
you even
know.
read
Yeah.
this?"
If
Like,
they
if
ever
you
cite a paper, if you go and read it, it's probably not saying what they're
Oh, you mean
claiming.
the
no.
rat study you just cited? Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
and if
Um,
they would have done one of those at Journal Club during our training, they would have gotten eviscerated. But instead, now they found a way to monetize it because they know that if they use these buzzwords
yeah.
and present it in a way, they'll get tons of likes, and they're getting the dopamine rush from it, and then they're probably making
Mhm.
money off of it. So then it perpetuates it. They're so
Yeah.
frustrating because it's like, why
Honest.
can't you be normal and honest? Like, what is
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah.
Hey,
That's the frustrating thing to me because as a 52-year-old menopausal woman and nutrition coach and stuff like that, I have these people in my DMs like, this is what's happening. I need this for visceral fat because this person told me this. And then they feel like I just this happened overnight. I'm a clean eater. I'm like, okay. The typical like, I just gained weight out of nowhere and it's my visceral fat and now I need GLP-1 microdosing because someone told me that and now everything's better. It's like, well,
yeah,
it's really not that difficult, but here we
yeah, like
are.
so this is why I think in the future, I think what we're gonna see, big pharma wants to make more money, and this is where it's like, okay, like, I guess capitalism, they whatever, but I think they're gonna probably study smaller doses
Hmm.
in everyday people to look at weight reduction prevention and longevity purposes. I know
Yeah.
they
Oh, for
want
sure.
It
everybody
seems
on
like a
this.
I was
natural.
just
Mhm.
saying this morning that I think that everyone's going to be on it at some point. Like
I
all of
think
us are
so.
just going to be like, you know what? Because our world is so dopamine hit, right? It's
Yeah,
just gonna. It's like
Yeah.
we may
I
need
think
this at some
I
point.
think so. I imagine I'll be on a I don't know, a very low dose, a micro dose, if you will.
And
Hmm.
I don't
Um,
know, Spencer, if this is outside of your
mhm.
wheelhouse, but I've seen some cool studies out there related to kind of some of the non-weight loss impact that
Yeah,
these
Hmm.
drugs can have,
Addiction.
such as alcohol use disorder and things like
yeah,
that. Can you speak to that, or is that
yeah.
like not something that you're
No,
comfortable?
it is. I published a paper in JAMA on alcohol because basically what I was seeing, I went viral on TikTok for actually like normal stuff because I go, hey, look, I just right away I was noticing Zepbound specific or Manjaro, I should say, because I was writing a lot of it off label right when it came out in 2022 or whatever it was. was like one of the first people to start using a lot of it, and my patients would be like, one of the weirdest things is I just don't want any more alcohol.
Right.
I just thought it was I was like, really? That is
Mhm.
interesting. We saw it a little bit with like Ozempic and Wegovy, but not like with Zepbound. So then
Okay.
Mhm.
I posted about it, and just TikTok people were like, Oh my God, I'm having the same thing." And it was kind of one of those things because it was so new and novel that then
Yeah.
everybody boom, 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 started talking all about it. And now
Mhm.
we did a study, and now there've actually been randomized trials because
Cool.
yeah, so like randomized trials, there's an effect that these drugs work up in the brain in various areas that are related to the reward center and addictive like behaviors or addiction behaviors.
Not just alcohol, drugs. It could be
No,
gambling, maybe,
all
or
sorts of
shopping.
stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Potentially sex addiction
Yep.
and biting your nails and
Wow.
what whatever, all sorts of stuff. Some people don't notice the effect. I will say that that it can potentially have too much of a pronounced effect. I do see some people get lack of a motivation to do anything because I think their dopamine and all of it, that system is dampened down too far. So
Mm, okay.
I see that once in a while. Again, another issue with going to a med spa, they won't monitor that. They won't even ask
Right.
about it. So I talk to my patients about it and they're like, you know what? I haven't been feeling like I want to go to the gym or whatever. So then I'm like, okay, I got to lower your dose. We got to
Mhm.
work through this and whatever, make sure that they're doing okay. But yeah, there's absolutely an effect. So the other thing that there are non-weight effects. So everybody saw it looks like they reduced heart attacks. And it's got to be because they're losing weight. And it's likely mostly I think weight independent effects, meaning they don't have to lose that much weight for it to reduce risks of heart attacks. So that's why I think what we're going to see is someone like me or whatever and everybody preventing heart attacks by using just a low dose of these things without even much
Yeah.
Okay.
weight loss. That's what I think.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Psoriatic
Well,
arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. I'm seeing patients say, again, that's why these are anecdotes. You need to actually study it, but
Yeah.
right.
against a placebo. But they claim that some of these, like tirzepatide, for example, is more powerful than their other biologic that's super expensive that they were taking, or whatever, Humira, Skyrizi, whatever. This was the thing that helped my joint pain the most. So it's like, okay, there is an anti-inflammatory effect, had nothing to do with their weight. People are having periods again without losing their weight because I thought, oh, PCOS, so it's helping them
Yeah.
lose weight, which is helping their PCOS. No, that they didn't even lose weight and they're starting to have normal periods. So I'm like, okay, clearly there's a bunch of non-weight related things going on here. So kind
Mhm.
of interesting.
It's very
Yeah, it
promising.
is.
Very intriguing. I know we're running out of time here, but I'm curious too, like, what can you talk about with the importance of strength training in all of this? Because and appetite control too, because one thing I've seen with clients and just heard online too is how little a lot of people are actually eating too, which can be obviously harmful long term.
Yeah.
So we have to be
Mm.
really aware of making sure we're eating adequate calories and macronutrients, micronutrients in conjunction with building a strong body.
Yeah, so you see this with people doing very low calorie diets and not
Mhm.
strength training and they feel like crap and they're losing a lot of weight. They'll get really thin, unfortunately can lose strength and muscle. We don't want people to be frail.
Mhm.
So I'd follow the same kind of principles of sports nutrition that we've known for a long time is that like, okay, I try to shoot for somewhere of a half of a percent to a 1% of their total body weight per week. So if they're 200 pounds, let's just say that to be easy, 1% would be 2 pounds a week. So I try not to go above that for each person.
Okay.
There's water weight loss in the beginning. That's why I have the dietitians because, like, I monitor their weight loss rate. I
Mhm.
have the dietitians there as well, and we have the strength training. So then, if they're losing weight faster than that, probably not eating enough. So that's one thing. And then you actually ask them what they're eating, and if you try to get dietary composition of whatever they're eating, oh, yeah, I'm basically eating bread because that's all I can tolerate because I don't feel like eating much. It's like, okay, hold on a second. Let's make sure you get some more protein. It's the goal isn't to just lose weight just to lose weight. We want to make them healthier in the long
Oh,
run
strong and
too.
healthy. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is why you monitor closely. And if you at the very least monitor the rate of weight loss, you can kind of estimate how much they're eating, but you won't be able to tell how much protein they're eating unless the other thing you can do is monitor their strength levels too,
Mhm.
obviously. Easier said than done sometimes, but that's the gist.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. You're doing great work out there, Dr. Spencer Nadolski.
You
Thanks.
really are.
Seriously, one of the good ones.
Your reels crack me up because Jordan's like, "You gotta follow Beth." I was like, "Oh, do I know her?" And then I clicked and I was just, like, cracking up about I was just like, "Oh god, that's right down my,
I love
right
it.
down my alley." Yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here today.
Yeah.
Hopefully people have learned. I know we've learned some things here. If people
Mhm.
want to learn more about you, potentially work with you in your clinic or something like that, where can people find you? How can they look you up?
Yeah, so my clinic is joinvineyard.com, like a vineyard, like you're not drinking wine, but it's supposed to be kind of a place you wanna hang out, so joinvineyard .com, and then you can get me on Instagram, Dr. Spencer Nadolski. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, all the different places. I have a podcast called Docs Who Lift, where we
Mhm.
promote, lifting as exercise and go over all these medicines in detail. My brother's an endocrinologist, and
Yeah, Carl.
he's 5'5" and looks like me, but shrunken down. I always say he had abs in utero, and abs aren't made in the kitchen; they're made in the womb. That's my joke.
Oh, that's too funny. And I think I remember you talking, maybe it was one of the podcasts with your brother, or you were on somebody's podcast, but I remember this like years back, you were talking about that you wanted to create something that you can have nutrition, strength training, and you wanted like a one-stop shop. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's what you're doing right now. And
yeah,
it like happened.
yeah. Have to. And the next step would be doing potentially brick and mortar clinics. It's just they're a lot more
Yeah,
expensive. Like the overhead's a lot higher. So future state would be like, yeah, everything. Whether insurance pays for it, I don't know if I'll ever get to that point, but I want to make it
right.
at least accessible for most people. That they're like,
Yes,
yeah, this is like a cable subscription or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
imagine
I love it.
having a gym at your doctor's office. That
yeah, it would be
that
Right?
cool. I'd enjoy it. I'd probably use it the most.
Right. Exactly. Well,
amazing.
thank you so much, Dr. Spencer Nadolski. It's been a pleasure having you on this podcast,
Thanks for
and
having me on.
keep in touch.
Thank
We will
you.
be
Thank
posting
you so
this,
much.
I think, on Friday.
Perfect.
Quick
Let me
turnaround
know,
time.
collaborate or whatever you need to do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode, so why not share with a friend who needs to hear it? Send us a DM on Instagram or email us at cutthecrappod@gmail.com and join our Patreon at patreon.com/cutthecrappodcast. As always, we appreciate you and thanks for being here.